it's this huge potency that music has in terms of fan base and trust, because we don't trust our politicians anymore. We don't trust our scientists, or we find that boring. So it's like this power of music to get people to feel, which then leads us on to thinking in a different way and then acting in a different way. So it's like this whole idea of the potency of music. You were saying the two things that really get you feeling good is walking in the woods and music. And that's been neurologically proven. Oliver Sacks and many others have now said, like, the two things that can actually change our nervous system are music and nature. And so it's like, okay, we're onto something here, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we're, part of something bigger. It's like almost a belief system. So this is why, alongside Earth% and other organizations, I'm really in the space of trying to make sure music really is part of the change that we would love to see in the world.
You're listening to the Spaceship Earth podcast with me, Dan Burgess. The story of Spaceship Earth is simple. We live on a life-giving rock called Earth, hurtling through space. Like a spaceship, we have a finite amount of supplies with an intelligent operating system called nature, which keeps everything replenished as long as we all respect it and participate wisely. In this podcast, I'm in conversation with folk involved in regenerating life, shifting consciousness and reimagining how we can live more beautifully and peacefully. I talk with artists, writers, activists, designers, adventurers, healers, farmers, creative mavericks, and more. Their stories invite us to participate in the co-creation of life-sustaining cultures, in service to life, becoming crew on Spaceship Earth. Greetings, Earthling. Welcome to the Spaceship Earth podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This is Dan, your host and guide. Welcome aboard. We're a podcast hosting conversations and stories from the intersections of ecology, culture, and deep transformation, exploring how we might live with greater imagination and responsibility as crew members of a planet in crisis, while cultivating regenerative mindsets and practices that align human activity with the rhythms, patterns, and needs of this living world. My guest in this episode is Sophia Shnapp, an impact producer working in the music industry climate charity Earth% with the Wisdom Keepers Delegation and Future Earth. Sophia leads projects at the edges of culture, music, and systemic change. She's a pollinator of possibilities, an incredible energy of intuitions, system sense, joy, and experimentation. She moves between worlds, the dance floor and the woodland, policy rooms and prayer circles, the music industry and the more than human world. Sophia is a proper Earthling, culture lover, movement maker. She's guided by passion, deep purpose, and the power of music to awaken hearts, spark change, and remind us we all belong to this great big living spaceship we call home. This was an insightful, honest, creative and playful conversation that often led us to riffing imaginatively on what could be. And I really respect Sophia's willingness to dance with complexity, nuance and contradiction. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do too. If you do, please do share it widely with others who might also appreciate it. This is the practice of reciprocity, which of course is how life rolls on Spaceship Earth. If you want to stay connected with us and get all the latest episodes into your inbox, my writing and our action learning offerings and gatherings from the Becoming Crew collective, best way to do that is to subscribe at becomingcrew.substack.com. Right, let's cut to it. This is the Spaceship Earth podcast in conversation with Sophia Shnapp. Enjoy.
You're listening to the Spaceship Earth podcast with my dad, Dan Burgess.
Sophia, welcome to the Spaceship Earth podcast.
Thank you kindly. Thank you for the invite. Thanks for letting me hop aboard.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Welcome aboard. I just suddenly thought, because we've met a couple of times at the Village of Plums, I could ring a bell to sort of start us off. What do you think?
Oof. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, just to bring us into this conversation.
And that is the power of mindfulness. And that is also the power of vibration.
Exactly. And we like vibes on the on the Spaceship Earth. So, welcome.
Thank you.
I always love to kick off with this question of, whereabouts are you on Spaceship Earth, and how are you showing up right now?
I well, thanks to that beautiful bell, I've just been brought deep into my heart. And it's beautiful. I've had a lovely morning. I went for a long run around Victoria Park, which is a beautiful big park in Hackney. And it's autumn here. And the leaves on the trees are falling, and many are red. So I spent this morning kind of fascinatingly watching these leaves being like readying themselves to drop or falling or being on the ground and composting. And I just thought, what a wonderful way of living in a detached cycle of nature, to be a leaf. So I'm pretty good. I've had my nature dose for the day, let's call it. And I hope to get some more. But yeah, I'm well. I'm really well, thank you.
Before we get into the kind of getting into the sort of the stuff, the deeper things, I'm always at this moment, I'm always kind of like trying to sort of sense my way into this moment and how folks are experiencing the world in this moment, because we're all kind of grounded in different realities these days. And so, yeah, my question is, how would you describe, I like to say, the vibes, the frequencies, the energies, if you like, on Spaceship Earth right now as you're experiencing them where you are? Like, what are you sensing in your local ecosystem, so to speak, that you're part of?
Well, gosh, I suppose I love this quote, live where you live, and localization is something that's so important for the world right now. And yet what came through was like thinking about all the different ecosystems that I am lucky enough to inhabit that are not all exactly plopped in Hackney. So there's a lot of positive things happening around me whilst we're in this wider bubble of complete discombobulation about the state of the world, right? So we've got like the global fear and all of the polarization and what's happening politically in many, many parts around the world, and our, fed sense of separateness that has been going on for about 500 years, that's really coming to this, like, I guess, peak of we can't keep feeling separate. And yet, the more I wake up and the more those around me I'm seeing wake up, the more I'm feeling like there are real echoes of deeper understanding of how we can create a more interconnected world now, which feels amazing in a way that people are really waking up. And so, for example, this week in London, there's been, I think, 5 different events that have all been around awakenings and consciousness, whether it's visionaries coming together or the Blue Earth Summit. There's just a lot of people who really care, who are showing up in different networks. And then you think about hyper-locally in Hackney, there's so many different kind of pop-up gardens and places for people to learn about how to be where they are, parks that are just so filled with so many different activities for people to come and connect and touch the soil. And then this beautiful place that you and I met, that is Plum Village, that is goes deep into the heart of how humans can show up and better relate with themselves, each other, and nature. So my spaceship, maybe I'm selecting the places that make me feel like I'm in a place of kinship with those around me. But I do feel like the ripple effects of the different communities I'm in are spreading and are having some form of wider impact around the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. I was kind of reflecting a little bit before, this conversation we're having, just about how what I've sort of have sensed around your work. And we've met a few times, often just sort of bumping into each other, popping up in places, particularly like you say at Plum Village and other gatherings. And I've I know a little bit about your work. I know you're sort of working across kind of quite a lot of different communities by my senses, but music and culture and climate and the living world, and I know a little bit that you came more from maybe more, would you say, technical policy climate background perhaps, but are now sort of, my sense is you're in very much a kind of cultural community, this entanglement of people and systems. And I get a sense that you're sort of tending to quite vital relationships, but I don't know. And I would love, I would love to understand more about what that looks like for you, the work you're doing. And often with listeners, I love to try and give a little bit of, invite guests to give a little bit of the backstory as well, that sort of makes sense of the work that you're doing now. And I think it's just interesting to know how, the threads that we sort of follow and the paths we follow, and how the things we pull on or don't let go of, and where they lead us. So I wondered whether, you could, give us a sense of the work that you're doing, but perhaps through the lens of a bit of the backstory of how you got there as well, just to give us a good bit of grounding for the conversation and helping listeners make sense of the work. Would that be a good place to start?
Yeah. It's funny because how do we get here and what is our path is like, it sometimes takes a while to realize that moments in our past have completely shaped us. Our ancestry has obviously completely shaped us, and all of these rituals and traditions that pass down through families have of course shaped us. And sometimes when you're asked this question, how on earth, why are you in the heart of the cultural world, and what is it about music that's why is it that you're in the music for change and working with some fantastic Indigenous wisdom holders? And I'm like, I feel so lucky to be here and to be in a place of purpose and passion, which is, it's really, it comes from the heart and it's amazing. But I have been thinking back on why and how I got here. And I think it's there's many threads that one could take, but as a 10-year-old girl, I was plucked out of the bustling city of London town. I had some best pals, and we would always dance to Spice Girls and ask all of our parents to watch us when they were having dinner parties. And we would go to the cinema, and we would be making puppets and getting creative in local like art centers. And it was such a vibrant like way to grow up in the middle of a city. And I loved it. And I was, wearing platforms and necklaces, and I felt like a Spice Girl. And at 10, my mum's from Scotland. She said that, I want the family to grow up in nature, and I don't want to be closing my windows every time I'm getting changed. And I didn't quite understand what she meant. And I was like, no. So she plucked us all out of this fun, vibrant place and put this 10-year-old girl in the middle of nowhere in a tiny village in Scotland. And I think that the nearest village that's, became one of the other huge pillars for why I am who I am, was 3 miles away. So I was like, I had the woodlands, the wind, nature, the animals. That was the, abundance of animals and nature to play with that became my new best friends. And I'm only realizing now that was such a pivotal thing for my life, to have that interconnection of like the deep understanding of what culture can do, whilst also knowing that nature is us and our best friend. And like, I could feel really alive in nature and have a lovely, lovely childhood. And I think it was this alone time, lots of alone time in nature as a child, that connected me back to my animal, back to who I am, that then has led me on from the minute I was told I had to choose something to study. I went straight into environmental engineering because I wanted to find solutions to the problems that we were seeing in the world. But I want to also take it back to this village that I grew up in, that was like, the fishermen were the village elders. The shopkeeper was also the local DJ, and he would, make sure that the elderly were fed. And it was just this like a deep, honest, kind space of community. And it was like everybody was friends. It was intergenerational. And I felt so protected and loved by the elders and by the uncles, and everyone knows your name and everyone talks of when you walk down the street. And I guess that was what taught me how to be a kind, good citizen, because everybody knows what you're up to, and you've got to look after each other. And so this move, when I was like digging my feet in the sand at the time, really has shaped me. So anyway, I went on to study environmental engineering in Glasgow. And there I was like real geeking out. And all of my best friends were like part of this epicenter of the vibrant Glasgow nightlife scene, which was Sub Club, The Arches, Jackmaster. We had the coolest Optimo DJs. We had the coolest nights on.
I've been playing a lot of Slam this week. Actually, I've been digging out all my Slam collections. Weirdly, don't know why.
Music, it was like a ritual. Every Thursday, Friday night, we would go out to the clubs together, and we would dance our socks off, and we would feel this state of pure awe and ecstasy and interconnectedness. And it was like, and then I'd go back to uni on Monday like, oh, right, yeah, numbers, figures, solution. It was like I was living this split personality. And similarly, I then realized kind of when it was on to going to find a job, I was like, gosh, like, although I love that there are solutions, they're such small localized solutions with like wind turbine farms, and Scotland's really an epicenter for renewable energy. So there was a lot of jobs available, but it just all felt quite low, like small scale. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was falling in love with a French architect, and I was whisked to Paris. And there is like the epicenter essentially of like climate policy. It was about 15 years ago, and there was the International Energy Agency, the United Nations. And so I started working for a think tank working on climate policy. And so there I was like working with the World Bank, the International Energy Agency, the European Commission. And I was like surrounded by these older suits and boots, white men who really cared, like really, really cared about changing the climate and really believed that we had enough time to make the change if we got it right. And this was 15 years ago. And we were talking about 2050 like it was so far away and we've got this. And there was a lot of like excitement. And I was in that space for about 10 years. And by the end, I got so frustrated and like off railed because I kept hearing the same rhetoric of like, we've got these amazing policies, the Green New Deal, other amazing progressive policies, but civil society just weren't up for uptaking them, let's say. Like it wasn't like the wider public weren't ready to say, okay, we're ready to spend money on making shifts that you can't see. They wanted, we would always laugh at like the neighbor effect. They would want a shed in the garden that you could see. If one neighbor got it, then all the neighbors would get it, but you would never put insulation in the house because you can't see it, so it's not sexy. And so when this same question kept coming up, how do we make this sexy? What are we doing? How do we make people care? Was also the same time of me being like, wait a minute, the thing that I care the most about is music, is culture, is exhibitions. And then I'm like, okay, there's this shift happening. I can't be in policy anymore because it's just not doing what I thought it was going to do. And I wanted so deeply to help other people see what I saw, which, by the way, isn't that easy because I was plopped into nature, and a lot of city dwellers, like my good friends, were like scared of even jumping over a dike or a wall, because they felt like it was private land, whereas in Scotland we had the right to roam. So people were scared to even go for walks or nighttime in the dark. I had friends staying with us in Scotland, and my friends would be so scared of, being in nature in the nighttime because who was going to be there? And they didn't realize it was like so safe. So I went for this. I started to move into the world of policy writing, into the world of culture, writing articles and making podcasts. And I went for this run along the canal. And one of my pals from Glasgow music scene was like, hey, she like saw me running, and I was here deep in my like, what am I going to do? Existential crisis, like policy isn't working. And she's like, Soph, have you heard the rumors? Have you heard the whispers? Brian Eno started this new thing about unleashing the power of music in service of the planet. I was like, oh my God, this is one of my heroes. And they say don't meet your heroes, and I say choose your heroes wisely and definitely meet your heroes, because from then my life really changed, and I really felt like I found people that saw what I see and people that really can galvanize the masses via this huge, beautiful, powerful tool that's like inherent in everyone is music. And it's the place that I've belonged for my whole life. And I was like, oh, wow, now I'm not in this like polarized personality. I'm like doing and working and being in a space that I truly, deeply am touched by and believe in and can make change. So that was where my life completely changed. And that's where I am now.
Beautiful. I love it. It's, there's a lot sort of popping as you were talking. I grew up as in the woods, effectively, and then weirdly, like my first 5 years of work were in the independent music distribution, like in dance distribution. That's what I did for 5 years, and DJ'd as well. And so it's like I can sense though, those spaces actually for me had a lot of qualities that are actually very similar qualities. Weirdly, sort of. Being in the woods and being at a rave, for example, it's like, I don't know. It was like a sense of community, connection, relationship, openness, creativity that I actually sensed in both of those kind of, in sort of, yeah. So I really sort of feel that that journey. And I remember when Earth Percent launched. Actually, I had a conversation. I can't remember, but when it was being formed, I was sort of gathering kind of, there was conversations going on with different people in different sectors, and I remember being connected to this, I don't know who the group of trustees were, or the people that along with Brian that were sort of coming to put this thing together. But I remember seeing this and thinking, amazing, like about time, actually. And so I would love to, I would love to sort of, because I guess, to know what does that work look like for you with Earth%, and how does it sort of manifest? Because it's kind of, what are you, a few years now? Is it
4 years officially launched?
Yeah.
5-6 years in the making.
Yeah. So maybe you could explain for those that haven't come across Earth%, just give listeners a sense of what it exists to do. And then perhaps you could talk a little bit about, what does that look like for the work that you're doing? Just a little bit of a sense of how, because I always get a feeling that, just from who you are, say I've said before, I get a sense that you're sort of, really sort of nurturing, tending to relationships. I don't know, I get this feeling between artists and activists and perhaps more Indigenous communities now. And I don't know. So I'd love to know a little bit, if you can, maybe you could give us a sense of what the work looks like for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited to tell you about Earth%. So tagline: unleashing the power of music in service of the planet. Essentially the music industry's climate foundation. And it's, you think about this thing like, what is the power of music, and how can music finally jump aboard one of the biggest existential crises of our time? And you look back over history and you think about music and its role it played in the suffragettes marches, and Sam Cooke, change going to come during the civil rights movement. And it's like this, it's like this boiling, bubbling expression of how society is feeling. And so this is why it's like, it's about time music jumped in and started really, really being part of the vessel for change, for getting humanity to be in a place that it so would love to be in. So essentially the idea is kind of twofold, though we're working with many different streams. But number one, what would it look like for there to be an Earth% going back to nature, climate justice, adaptation, mitigation? What would it look like for the music industry to give a small cut of its already organized in percentages, 1%, back to the planet? It's like it becomes this model that is so accessible that anyone in the music industry can easily use and say, oh gosh, of course I want to give back, and only 1%, I can do that. If you don't want it to be of all of your income, you can do it just from one gig, or your live streaming, or your merch, or whatever it is. It's a very, very, very simple mechanism for anybody who wants to give back. We make it easy. We say that all the time. You want to do it? Say yes, and we work out the other parts. So there's the kind of financial side that is, it does allow for people to go to bed at night feeling like, woof, yes, I am so grateful that I'm able to give back. And not only that, it's further successful because of two things. Number one, all the money that's put into the percentage pot is given directly back out to grants. So anyone that's worried about the organization, et cetera, taking too much, it doesn't apply, because we have a different area that Brian kindly looks after, and other people, Coldplay, that give back to the organization itself. So anybody who wants to give is like, wow, 100% of my money is going into nature preservation, essentially. Number two, it's not for the musicians nor us to decide where the funds go. So we have this fantastic committee of experts, scientists, Indigenous leaders, politicians, youth activists, who all decide upon where the funding goes. So it's this thing of how to bring in all the right people into this mechanism so that actually it sits well with everyone. It's not for the musicians to know what's going on in the world. It's for the musicians to create and design and almost become the sci-fi actors of the new world, to designing new worlds. And then the other part that I get really excited about is this kind of culture that we're creating around Earth%, that is like for anybody that cares and feels like they don't quite understand what's going on, nor in terms of values in the music industry, nor in the actual world. They can come together and feel like, wow, we've got a community, we've got friends, we've got gatherings, we are meeting like-minded people, and it's this ripple effect of culture. How can we collectively and on our platforms and on stage speak to people in a way that can help them connect? So it's the ripple effects way beyond just giving money back, but it's also this huge potency that music has in terms of fan base and trust, because we don't trust our politicians anymore. We don't trust our scientists, or we find that boring. So it's like this power of music to get people to feel, which then leads us on to thinking in a different way and then acting in a different way. So it's like this whole idea of the potency of music. You were saying the two things that really get you feeling good is walking in the woods and music. And that's been neurologically proven. Oliver Sacks and many others have now said, like, the two things that can actually change our nervous system are music and nature. And so it's like, okay, we're onto something here, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we're, part of something bigger. It's like almost a belief system. So this is why, alongside Earth% and other organizations, I'm really in the space of trying to make sure music really is part of the change that we would love to see in the world.
Beautiful. All to that. Because music and music industries are, complex, big systems with all kinds of different positionalities and, folks showing up, from artists to management to labels to major labels to independents to lawyers to all of the, it's a huge industry, right? And obviously there's a lot of power and there's a lot of influence. And as we know, once you lift under the hood of climate and, the depletion of the living world, the more you step towards it, both the possibility, but the overwhelm, you're holding a lot, right? The more you look into this stuff. And I don't know, because I haven't worked with the music industry for many, many years, but I've worked with lots of other industries on this stuff. I guess there are, there's always energy for this, and there's always resistance. And obviously we're having to sort of also face into a lot of complexity and contradiction and all of these things that make us question the models, the processes. What's it been like bringing this in? Because I get the payment model, and it's a beautiful kind of mechanism, the 1%, and the idea that, like you say, that you can kind of choose your own adventure, if you like, for if you're an artist, or say, we'll donate off this bit of our work, and I love all of that. I guess I'm interested in how, as things heat up, metaphorically, how are you finding the response to the work you're trying to do? Because it's uncomfortable as well, right? I mean, it's causing, these kind of changes that we're all being presented with are uncomfortable, because they're challenging a lot of the ways we've been doing things, the ways we've been seeing ourselves as humans. And I think particularly, I get a sense, I guess I'm curious about the industry, these big companies that are sort of part of this stuff, and I guess business as usual versus staying with the trouble. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Like, what's the sort of sense of, like, great, all right, we'll contribute, but we're just going to keep going, versus sort of understanding the enormity of what we're also being faced with, and the ability for, or the curiosity of the sector to want to go on this journey. That was a long, sort of slightly neurodivergent ramble, but I think you can sense where I'm coming from. I'm just curious as to know what the appetite has been like, and the kind of challenges that, you know, folks are experiencing, and how you're sort of, how you're evolving and what you're learning, I guess, about how the sector responds.
I think it's quite an interesting sector because essentially it's not got a law governing it to a degree. You know, like housing sector has the housing minister, and energy sector has the energy minister. So it's this kind of rogue sector that moves and shakes in its own right. But in all honesty, sadly, like any sector, it's hyper capitalist at the moment, isn't it? And that in itself is taking away from many of the artistry, much of the artistry. People are told to make songs about love and X, Y, and Z that will be heard by the masses. And so it kind of takes away the creativity from it. So I think that's what a lot of artists are feeling at the moment, is like, I'm a cog in the machine rather than like a creative. And the ones that rebel, we do catch them. Actually, we catch more of the rebels than others. But I guess what I'd like to say is there's a lot of people in music who care, I think. And I think it comes down to person over and over again. Who's the CEO of the big company? Who wants to make genuine change, and who wants to like tick a box? But this goes back to essentially one of the biggest problems of the world, which is currently economics are based on things that you can value, and it's all linked back to money. And so even if a new CEO comes in and full guns blazing, really excited to make change within the model, they've got corporate responsibility. They have a board that are looking at how they're growing, which is how they're growing financially. And a lot of the time, financial solutions aren't necessarily the solution that will tick the boxes of the board. So this is what we're up against, I think, globally. This is not just music industry situation or whatever. It's like, it's how do we start to really reassess values and put values on nature, put values on, you know, many other things. I think it's another product of the world that we're in right now, the music industry itself. And it's a bit more punk and rock and roll, but there are huge conglomerates that are making most of the money. Though there is Spotify, who's just alongside Earth%, brought in nature officially as an artist, which is a huge, I'd say, groundbreaking systems change within the music industry that has really brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, because nature now is officially an artist on Spotify, and that's in 181 different countries, and has already raised hundreds of thousands for nature preservation charities around the world. So there are rays of hope.
There are two stories on Spaceship Earth, a passenger story and a crew story. The passenger story is based on extraction, transaction, and distraction, and it's leading us towards collapse. The crew story is based on connection, cooperation, and participation. It leads towards regeneration.
You're listening to the Spaceship Earth podcast with my dad, Dan Burgess.
Are there, I guess, because I see, I see sort of artists just through like the Earth% Instagram. I see, when artists are signing up and when they're, what are, are there some stories or, things you've learned from certain projects or artists that you might want to share? Just some stuff that just, again, shows how people are embracing this relationship.
Well, you think of like the world being looked at in terms of key performance indicators, and them all being around the financials. And then so it's like, okay, how do we start to think about how do we start to think about what we're doing in terms of other forms of impact, and what are the cultural ripple effects of a community of nature kin coming together. And there's been some fantastic, some fantastic songs that have been brought out by whopping huge artists, from Ellie Goulding to Brian Eno and David Bowie collaborating for the sounds of nature. And so there's people really thinking about making songs in collaboration with nature, which in itself has a ripple effect. And then there's this one time that really sticks with me, that we were having this kind of Earth Percent meeting in Brian's office, and it was for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, and there were these Pacific Islanders who were singing because every time we kind of host a gathering, we want to bring music into it, of course, as the Music Industry's Climate Foundation. And there were these fantastic singers who kind of shuddered our hearts. And at the end of the conversations around big oil and the state of the world, Brian does this thing where he hosts, I think it's every Tuesday, he hosts this choir of kind of gospel sounds, and he invites people to it, and it's really something you really want to go to. But anyway, he kind of brought out his book sheet, and he took us all outside to sing with these Pacific Islanders. And the echoes that were coming through and the feelings that were coming through was so pertinent that I think Brian got so excited that he texted Chris Martin and said, "Hey, I really think you need to meet these singers." And within, I think, a week, they were touring with Coldplay on stage, singing and talking about what they were trying to do to save their islands in the Pacific Islands.
I just met this band called This Is Our Home. And this band come from New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, as far away from here as you can imagine. And they are going around the world singing together to bring attention to everything that's going on with the oceans and with our planet.
And I was just like, wow, that's the power of music. And that's Coldplay have got such a huge audience. And it's immediate if a musician is really on the same page. But it's not to say that every musician is, and I think a question that's coming up for me more and more is music can help people feel interconnected. It can help people reach this state of awe. You're talking about your acid house days. I'm talking about my Glasgow dance days. And yet, does it really deeply connect us to nature? Because music, whilst it's also always been a ritual, from campfires to cathedrals to now clubs, does it connect us to nature? And I think that this is a question I'm posing a lot at the moment. Is I think whilst it inherently does, because we are inherently animals and we are inherently nature, it's not so obvious to everybody that listening to music will then make us kinder people. So it's how can we then shape and move music so that it does actually help people deeply connect with nature?
Well, that's an inquiry, isn't it?
It is an inquiry at the moment. I can to you.
I was a little bit on that, but slightly, I guess, a slightly different question, but something I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of years, and is becoming a sort of big part of the work I'm doing, is about living with, or is about staying with the discomfort of this time. Or how do we do that? How do we stay with the fear, the contradiction, the divisiveness, the complexity, the overwhelm, the joy, the horror, and not turn away, and not numb ourselves or distract or deny or blame these people over there or whatever it is, and a lot of the work that I'm doing is around our building that relationality with both the living world, but also with communities of other humans, so that we together can can build that kind of capacity maybe to sort of sit with all of this. But I was thinking about music. I was actually thinking a little bit about this conversation with you, and I was thinking about how music and artists and musicians have often been called in, at moments of, big issues, right? Whether it's big concerts or, what I mean? It's because of, obviously the power of music. But I was thinking about what would that look like? Like, what would, can music help us could music more intentionally help us become more comfortable with uncertainty, for example, with fear, the things that I see as sort of building in the culture quite fast and rapidly, and because I often think in my strange mind, I often have these thoughts like if we had like really wise elders as kind of leaders, who were sort of like, with great humility going, we're in the shit, guys. There's a lot of stuff we have no fucking idea about that's coming our way. We really need to kind of, we need to sort of help each other out a bit here, you know what I mean? And obviously all of that is completely missing from the sort of the narratives of modernity and whatever else, that's kind of driving us forward all the time. But I was kind of wondering, as a thought experiment, if we were living at a moment where we had that kind of wisdom, in our sort of institutional leadership, what might the ask be to sort of artists and musicians? You know what I mean, in terms of preparation or helping us become more? Because I sense a lot of the issues that we're, whether it's climate, nature breakdown, genocides, all of the stuff that we're experiencing at the moment, the consequences that we're experiencing of the last, I don't know, few hundred years, but I mean the acceleration of the last few decades particularly, but those consequences are at play. So what, if we can, as a thought experiment, how might music respond in that way? Because for me, I sense that music can help you, or at least in my own experience, music has often helped me become okay with, you know what I mean, to sort of deal with the full range of emotions and fears and stuff. Anyway, another sort of ramble, but I'm just curious as into sort of, how that might look and, and maybe how those responses, if those kind of responses even feel possible over, as we sort of move into these very uncertain times. Like what's the thing? It is about, that relationality with the living world. But like you said at the start, for most folks, it's so alien or they don't have that, connection. It's not there yet. So you have to find ways, or, you need people that can help bridge and find that. But I think the fear and the uncertainty stuff is something, that feels really sort of, it's bubbling everywhere. So anyway, I'll stop there because.
Well, there are lots of hooks in that ramble.
yes, sorry.
No,
did it make any sense at all? You see what I'm trying to say? It's something about.
I'll tell you that it made me think about things. So you've created some stories in my head that I feel are worth sharing, and I think actually coming into an imagination space together is in its own way exciting, because then potentially seeds can be planted, right? So I've got two threads that I'm getting from you. Number one is how can music really show up right now? And I think you're trying to go deeper into like this, the negative senses at that point, the fear, the despair, the disconnectedness. And so it's like, there's a picture that came through to me that was like, number one, the reason that we are turning to music and music is showing up so much is because we're so exhausted by the polarization of the political landscape and of the politicians infighting rather than finding solutions. So we're like, people have basically lost their tether with politics. Like a lot of people around me are like, I'm not even voting. I mean, this is just like, what is this? Like, what is this charade? Is it a democracy now? Like, where are we? Like, is our vote even, is it even counted? there's the piece around needing a belief system, needing to have trusted people that they can follow and understand. Like, people are falling so rapidly into different forms of religion and any kind of thing that they can hold on to find their community, to find the people that think like-minded, because we're coming from a place of scarcity, number one. And you talk about this place of being in such fear and despair. But I actually think that that's the climate world that's feeling that. And I'm not too sure that the wider world, who are the people that we really need to engage with, are yet even there. I'm not sure they know, like, who's they, but I think society currently has been taught to suppress, bury feelings, and just kind of keep on carrying on. That was like so much of the messaging that we were given. So what does it look like to initially step into feelings, which is like, you got to feel to heal? Like, in order for society, in order for every human on this planet to come out the other end and to see how they can start relating with themselves better, with each other better, and with nature better, you got to first feel. And there's a lot of feeling that's been suppressed from our generation, from our parents' generation, from the generation before, for 500 years worth of disconnectedness, maybe even more. So there's a piece around really diving deep into allowing ourselves to feel. And then there's a piece around, from there, we can start to think, act, heal, and come together. But the tapping into that feeling space, I think music is absolutely the key to that. And there's this other piece that came through when we're in this imagination sphere that's like, politicians are currently going on stage, saying their bit, telling us what they think we want to hear. And yet, why on earth are we not, like, this whole piece around people see arts and the creative industry as the last in line for funding and last in line for any respect kind of thing. And yet it's the engineers, the politicians, et cetera, that have got like the hierarchical positioning at the top. What does it look like if we start to really think holistically, interconnectedly, and say, right, okay, when we're doing this, I don't know, some kind of prime minister's speech, the prime minister also brings in a musician who can allow, first of all, for people to feel and heal, and go into whatever, because most of the topics that politicians talk about are hard and like sad. So like, what is it to bring in a beautiful orchestra, or like Inualdi in, to get us to really tap into our heart space, to then start to like trust the politician to really be caring and doing what we want them to do. I've gone on a complete rampage.
Love it.
Like you.
I love it. That's what this podcast is all about.
How do we interconnect cultures? How do we interconnect sectors? How do we get the health sector to start thinking, okay, if they put money into climate, then they actually will be doing better by the end of the year? Like, how do we get the housing sector to care about the climate so that they'll have way less excess winter deaths? Like, we're thinking about metrics that aren't really like caring about ourselves, each other, and the planet. We're not thinking about healing humanity in that way.
I guess it makes me, as I'm listening, it makes me, at least my sense is that, the dominant cultures that we're in, these dominant cultures that have been, developed over many, many years, that we're living in the consequences of, those ways of thinking, they're not, we're not, cultivated to understand complexity at all. Everything is the logic is pretty rational. It's very linear. It's very heady. And we're still in there. I mean, you can see it playing out in the politics right now, globally, nationally, whatever. It's still like, command and control logic, no nuance, no understanding of complexity, no real grounded experiential knowledge at all of different contexts of how people are experiencing things. It's so removed. It's peak separation, I call it, peak separation logic. And when I hear you, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly that. Like, so how do we're beginning to, these alternatives, we know there's all kinds of work that's going on the ground in all kinds of places, where people are starting to bring these things together to start to grow our abilities as human beings to understand complexity, to understand entanglement and relationality and all the things that we know now we're beginning to understand. That's actually that's how life works. That's the operating system.
What is it? Nina Simone's quote, an artist's duty is to reflect the times. And I think the piece around being a creative and creating a piece of art, it does take you into that meditative state that then allows you to really to feel. And the role of the artist is to help people to feel. And that's something that the other sectors can't quite do. I mean, you hear a stat and it just goes in one ear and out the other. So
yeah, we don't have an information problem, do we? Let's face it.
We don't have an information problem, but again, it's like it's human to human. I think like some artists are so, feeling the despair so deeply because they feel so much and they are so in love with the natural world and they want to do back. And there's lots of collectives of artists coming together to start to create bubbles in itself. The concert at the Wembley Arena, there were some fantastic artists coming together to speak about, this Together for Palestine piece. And a lot of different concerts. Fire Aid artists came together to talk about the fires in California. There's so many different kind of moments of artists coming together to speak on these times and bringing politicians on stage. It's like the Global Citizens also are doing that. They're bringing Indigenous leaders onto stage alongside politicians and climate experts. We see the role of bringing different chains of expertise on stage to talk whilst also immerse in culture. But do the wider world? I don't know. Yeah,
none of us know. On that, on uncertainty, let's say, how does uncertainty show up for you? How do you deal with uncertainty yourself? Like, is it something? Is it what's your relationship with uncertainty? Let's say, do you embrace it, or do you dance with it, or do you manage it somehow? Like, I'm really interested in, for me, this is a sort of riff, this idea of like, how do we become more comfortable with uncertainty? That might, as a culture, that could be an interesting space to, what would that look like? So I'm just curious about, how my guests deal with it.
Well, there's the there's the inner uncertainty and there's the planetary uncertainty. And I do think that they both feed into one another. This concept of, or this word solastalgia is the fear of losing your home. And I think that's what everybody in this world are feeling at the moment. Is there's this like deep uncertainty of if humanity will continue, from like, significant people living in villages in different places around the world that are no longer able to be farmed, so they have to actually be displaced. To we've started 1% in Ibiza, and I was there last week, and there were these colossal floods, like rivers through the city, and it was like, wow, this is maybe the first time I've ever experienced something so disastrous happening literally at my feet. And this was like, oh, maybe it's like, does it need to get as bad as every single person on the planet has somehow been affected quite badly by the change in planetary systems and climate weather, to then really start to wake up? And does it need, sorry, I've gone on a tangent, but uncertainty. I think that this is a personal development thing, isn't it? It's like how are you inside? Because things happen to us daily, weekly, yearly that make us feel certain ways. Sometimes we're kind of excited about a new opportunity, a new lover, a new best friend, a new whatever it is, and you can feel yourself feeling joyful and like having more energy and having extra energy to give to friends and communities around you. And then you can have some really sad things that happen, whether it's on paper like terrifyingly sad, like a loss, or whether it's like someone at work that's really, really upset you, or it doesn't feel values based. It depends on your values and what really happens to you. But it's safe to say that we're not going to be clean sailing all the time. I mean, like this, trying to get to this state of enlightenment is like, it's, even monks laugh at that. It's like, it's almost impossible unless you're sitting in a cave for your whole life. So it's about understanding that nothing is permanent, that we our feelings are constantly being triggered by things that are external to us, and understanding how to be in the very, very present moment that you're in. And I love this piece from Brother Spirit in Plum Village, who my first ever time I went to Plum Village, I was in this kind of place of despair, not only personal despair from like love and house being taken away and a job that went so terribly. It was just this like culmination of my life's rock bottom coming at me at once. So I went to Plum Village and I heard Brother Spirit speaking. I was like, oh, an angel. And then I saw the community working together. I was like, oh, I have faith in humanity again. And he said this thing that was like, all that we have control over is our present moment. And that comes from the way we think, the way we speak, and the way we act. And everything from there can change. And so you become a superhero of your own life. Like you can go back to the past and rechange negative narratives, and your actions in the present moment will allow for healthy beings in the future, as long as you're being values-based, kind, mindful, etc., etc. So it's like, whenever this uncertainty comes up, know that nothing is forever, nothing lasts forever. And then having a contact with your breath that allows you to come back to the present moment, and knowing that like, actually, does it matter? Does anything really matter? Like, do I need to put so much pressure on this? And particularly if it feels big and strong and almighty and all encompassing in the body, it's like, that's the ticket. That is the gift. That's the learning for you to go into your feelings and actually start to heal personally and on a planetary level.
Beautiful. I often think of the like the impermanence lessons that I experienced at Plum Village, and have been very helpful in again when I have sort of overwhelm of uncertainty, and just putting it back into that sense of everything is cycling, and I guess as something, as you were actually talking about the big floods in Ibiza, I remember seeing was it Seth Troxler losing his vinyl collection, and but actually when you were speaking to that, it's something, it's a conversation I've had several times with folks over the years, exactly about this. Is it this visceral experience personally that's almost required in order for you to feel that this is a reality. It's not a sort of thing over there, but it's a thing that's happening right here. And again, that's the majority of folks on the spaceship are already experiencing the consequences, right? It's us really in the Western cultures that are sort of starting to see it. But I'm really interested in in cycles, in endings, actually. And I've become to see that actually, which I guess is connected to a little bit to what we're talking about with impermanence, but being able to see endings as necessary parts of ongoing cycles, whether it's, endings of life, whether it's endings of stories in the culture, whether it's endings of behaviors that we now understand, are not so great, whatever. But the ability to see structures, systems, concepts, everything has a life, everything is cycling, everything must have some kind of ending. And how, again, in the dominant culture, we're quite phobic to that idea of seeing endings. We're not very good at dealing with endings in all forms. And again, I get a real sense that this is stuff that's really worth sort of practicing, playing with, the ability to let go of stuff and to see endings and to acknowledge the end of stuff in order for other things to be born. And it's a conversation I used to try and have a little bit when I used to do a lot of work in the sort of brand world, but obviously that stuff just didn't land at the time. But I think we're being confronted with endings in many ways, and actually what I'm seeing is that they can be really, really creative and really full of kind of nourishment in some ways for communities, particularly when we're able to kind of start to see things more in these seeing things as more alive and living and paying attention to them. So I guess in that, and there's always stuff out there, but I think stuff is ending all the time for us as well. So I'm just like, is anything ending for you right now?
I wish I had more of an answer for you. I think I can try and figure it out as I speak. I think what you're saying about this fear of endings, particularly fear of death in the Western cultures is pretty big. Shows our deep attachment to things, and a lot of my time has been spent over the past 5-6 years with one of the most beautiful groups of people I know is the Wisdom Keeper delegation, who are Indigenous leaders, experts, people from communities all around the world that gather together to kind of try and bring a collective mission and vision to the halls of power, particularly at COP, but in other different spaces where politicians are talking about changing the world. And what's beautiful is that there's this kind of collective understanding that death is just compost, and when someone dies, they're still around. Their ancestors are still in the nature, in the woods and the trees, and then there's a much less. There's much more of a surrender to death, and much more a love and respect and reverence to it. And then I suppose allowing them to live maybe a more rich life, not being fearful of where life is going to take one. And so, I do wonder if a big topic of our time could be like talking more about death and talking more about endings and even projects ending and creative projects being birthed. It's like a birth of one thing and an ending of another thing, and it's all compost.
Yeah.
And once we stop like putting this kind of putting things on pedestals and people and artists or people in power on pedestals, and we see that we're all one, and the worms are just as important as the lions, and it's all part of this greater wide web of nature. The trees again the leaves falling from the trees, I don't think anything is ever necessarily ending, right? It's just beginning anew. So it's just a cycle.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I'm totally with you. I think where I've got to is that this is, vital regenerative practices. Paying attention to the ending and the composting and the preparing the ground or the soils or whatever you want to call it for what might want to come next. But it's something that I think we bypass in the dominant culture, and again in this moment, it feels like extraordinary things could happen if we just paid a bit more attention, or put a bit of intentionality, structure, encouragement, practice, whatever it might, all the things are needed for something to become an accepted thing, conversation, whatever, in the art of ending things well, because I think there's quite a lot of shit that needs to it needs to end, but it doesn't have to be this kind of collapsing, it's all gone. It's like there's so much kind of in things, right? I come back to nutrients or fertilizer or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, it's just a sort of quite a life thread.
About the ending of the end of exploitative economies,
right?
Except the ending of separation. I do hope to see some of these economic models really come into life and light over the next 10, 20 years. Kay Rayworth is fantastic and is really looking at systems to govern the world that are actually based on nature and humans interrelating in a healthy dynamic, in a reciprocal way. And I think some places are really up for it, and some places are taking it on board. You've got ecocide coming through, and so many countries have signed that now and are up for it. From the big France and Spain and to smaller regions, but it's becoming its own light breath. Even the Oxford English Dictionary for Yonkis had nature's definition as humans separate and not part of the cosmos, and now it includes humans because we are nature. So I don't know, I think we need to keep feeling, keep going, appreciate the endings, celebrate the ending of this cycle of humanity, and really make everyone aware that it's happening. Humanity's ending, it's over. We can start anew. We can start to be an animal and be nature. We don't need to be civilized.
Well, that's I always say to people, things, humans, we worlds. Do you know what I mean? So it's the Earth is not ending, but this particular world that we've been worlding for quite a few years now is pretty fucked for most people. So it's if we,
so sad. It's it's traumatized upon trauma, and then people just rippling out trauma.
Yeah.
What about everyone smiling at each other and rolling around in the mud?
Yeah, exactly.
Just weirdos.
Yeah.
Please,
more of
that's
that.
What we want to be. And then when these people are stuck up. They call it a stick up the body, but you see that they're not able to be in their bodies. It's how to just get people to be more weird and animal for a bit.
Yeah, mushrooms perhaps, but no, it's
you said it. I'll let you.
I know. I
altered states.
I've been feeling that since I was about 16, and sort of stumbled across some magics in our local cricket ground. But I can still think you've just been joking over the last few decades, but increasingly I'm possibly I'm not sure anything else is going to do it. But anyway, we should probably move on. Well, actually,
there are the 4Ds that I like to talk about. Have you heard of this 4Ds?
No, tell us.
Martha Newsom's 4D theory. It's how humans from the beginning of time, when we gathered around campfires, we have always had this ritual of the 4Ds. And as I've said before, first it was campfires, then it was Middle Ages around more building structures, and now it's in clubs. But you've got D number 1, dancing. Somatics, being in our body, movement.
Yeah.
D number 2, drums, rhythm, music, vibrations through us. So you think of those two together, dancing and the drums. Oh my God, where are we going? The Sufi dancers would do that for hours, and boof, they're up there in ecstasy. And it was my first ever taste of ecstasy, actually. It was like dancing in Fez at the Sacred Music Festival to this like Sufi drum beat, and dancing just the exact repetitive rhythm over and over again. And I went woof after about 2 hours of doing the same thing. What is this? I promise I've not done any. So dance, drums, sleep deprivation gets you into an altered state. And then number 4, your favorite, drugs, aka medicine. So like medicines of the earth that take us to an altered state. And the 4 individually can do it, can get us into this interconnected state of awe, but together, boom. And humans have been doing that since time began. And this is how we like interconnected and saw each other and like cared about each other. And it was like the ceremony of like the togetherness. And so, as you were just saying, you've experienced that.
Well, it's again, sort of in the crew work we've been building around the podcast over the last few years, but these experience on land experience, so not non-ordinary experiences in nature. You could say they're forms of rites of passage, overnight nature solos, again, so you're on your own, you're fasting, you spend 14 hours overnight,
a pilgrimage, meditation,
all these things, okay, because they break us out, they take us off the highway of modernity and all of our logical certainty and command and controlling individual selves, and they put us into something where we're like, oh fuck, actually there's other stuff going on. And I do believe that it's, as you've just laid out so beautifully with the 4Ds, that this stuff is going to be essential among other things as well, to have widespread participation, experimentation with, if we're seriously going to sort of birth a culture that sees ourselves as interdependent beings, you know what I mean, creative, empathic, compassionate creatures. We're going to require these kind of things, because we're not going to think ourselves there, we're not going to talk ourselves there. And do you know what I mean? So
I've got an idea for you. I think that you've got to have a spaceship party.
Yes, I probably should. Where? On the spaceship?
I think
generally
on the spaceship. We're going to do it on the spaceship. I'm great with parties, as you probably know, so I can help you.
Yes.
We bring in the 4Ds and we bring in some interrelating.
I love it.
Fun.
I love it. I just think this stuff is like, I used to do a lot of consultancy work, advisory work, and you'd end up sort of in these organizations, and you're just, it's heady stuff. And I kind of let it all go over the last few years, because I could see the stuckness of it. And for me now, unless you're doing alongside that, unless you're doing something which is taking you off the highway and opening you up and allowing yourself to, you've used the word feel a lot, ultimately to feel this time, to feel your body, to feel the earth, to feel the suffering of others, to to feel it all. That's for me now. There's that is the most important work, because that's the stuff that actually I see extraordinary shifts happening in people. Feel to heal.
Exactly.
Feel to heal. So it's a feeling revolution, a rebellion of the heart.
There is a thing of like, sometimes like, the people they're stepping into like doing the work, inverted commas, and like, from as you explained, like psychology, psychedelics, somatics, these are all modalities that will help us to start to do the work and to look inside, to then heal inside, to then heal outside. Because as you say, if we're not healing inside, then how on earth do we expect the planet to be healed?
Yeah.
But then it's like there are, there's some fellow people who are on the path to healing are like, oh, for goodness sake, a can of worms. Maybe it was better we just suppressed it and just closed our eyes. It's hard work. It's not
messy,
easy.
messy.
It's messy. It takes you to different places, realms, and woof, you really feel things, and it's not that fun. I didn't cry for yonkies until I started doing the work, and now I'm like, whoa, God, not again.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's, as we've been talking, it's been making me think a little bit about it's like the dance music scene, right? The electronic music scene. So again, so if we talk a little bit about this kind of like your 4Ds work, but right, the stuff that's going to shake us up a bit, open us up. And so there's something for me about you know, again, you know, and it's not I'm not trying to be like a binary critic, but what I'm saying is that
what are you going to say?
No, not of you. I'm talking about us. Is when we look out into the culture, right? But there is a thing, you know, if you were going to do traditional, you know, rites of passage work, let's say, okay, and you would experience some kind of ritual, some kind of medicine, whatever that might look like, some kind of initiation, but you're being witnessed, you're coming back into community, right? So you're being witnessed by community, you're being seen for who you are, but you're also not doing it to sort of be a better individual in a highly individualistic society, to go out there and just be more better, you know, just to withstand the shitstorm that's out there, but still succeed. You're doing it to find what is your, you know, what is it that you're being called to serve for the health of the whole community, right? So it's like, what is your gift, and what is it that you're being invited into taking back out into your community? And it's something I'm exploring a lot through the land-based work I'm doing, and the teachers I've been working with, and some of the folks who've been on the pod, and just fascinated with this idea of service. What does it mean to be in service in these times where we're coming from our real place, our real gift, you know, our real kind of unique, our real individual gift, but we're not expressing it to be in pursuit of our own individuality. We're expressing it in service of the whole, right? The health of the whole. And it makes me think, again, my neurodivergence, I look at like dance music culture. I've kept going. I've been DJing for 30 years. I haven't been playing out as much. I've started playing out more, but I've always been fascinated with how that culture has evolved. And in some ways I see it this year. I went to a lot more sort of raves and stuff that I've been to for quite a long time. And I could feel the energy, you know, people are really like, again, like the overwhelm of a lot of stuff that's going on. And you can see people being pulled into community and connection, but it's still quite hedonistic. And, you know, you sort of leave that place, that rave, that festival, that whatever. And I guess for most of us, we're just back into the thing. So I'm sort of curious about how, are there signs? And I guess there are certain festivals perhaps that are sort of trying to, you know, again, respond to these times. What does it look like to ritualize, to connect, to build community around dancing and music and whatever, but in order to go back out into the world, not to be, you know, the best individual in the, you know, the capitalist economy, but in order to find my place of service in these times of enormous change. And I'm just wondering whether there's, you know, yeah, what you thought of that. Are you seeing any of that going on?
It's so funny that you bring up festivals. For me, festivals are the modern day ceremony, the modern day gathering, the modern day, like, one time a year where the community comes together to like celebrate all that's happened. And so it's like, you imagine like you're reconnecting with ritual, you're dancing all weekend, you're sleep deprived, you're entering into like altered states, you're dancing and you're listening to drums. It's literally, there's festival rules. Police don't care about what you're doing. You're in this like huge, vast space, bumping into new people. The serendipity that happens at festivals, it's like, it is a magical space. It's the most everyday, every human will like see in terms of like serendipity and magic and these kind of
alternative futures, alternative realities, and
and because there is no like potent, like, you can even think of the biggest festival in the UK is Glastonbury. Like, police let you do what you want to do. They're like, it's almost like, phew, there's this one time where everyone will go wild and mad, and then they'll go back and they'll have released their animal for the year or whatever. But like festivals all in themselves mainly have come from people in their passion and purpose saying, okay, what are our values? How do we let that resonate amongst the people that are around us? And then it grows and grows and grows if it's in flow, if it's in, in service. So I do think that festivals are modern days ceremony, ancient ceremony. It's a ritual. It's today's ritual. And I think that more and more festivals are becoming conscious. And if they're not, they're doing things that are at least planet positive. That amazing news story that came out about plastic straws being banned in the UK, thanks to David Attenborough and Glastonbury collaborating on a no plastic rule there, and it became so popular. And because Glastonbury, for example, is like a city, and if you can do it at Glastonbury, you can do it in any other city. So why wouldn't you? So like they are very much test beds for how humans could live together. And yet it isn't how we live day to day, because it's not the people that organize festivals that are at the heads of power.
Yeah.
But we should invite them and get them to come and boogie. But normally when the heads of power come to Glastonbury, they'll be in their own little green box doing their like green, thing with the other celebs.
We live on a life-giving rock called Earth, hurtling through space. How bonkers is that? You're listening to the Spaceship Earth podcast.
If you'd like to support the running of the Spaceship Earth podcast, head over to our Substack and sign up. You'll get every episode straight to your inbox, weekly writing, plus other crew offerings. We're grateful for whatever you can give. Join us at becomingcrew.substack.com. It's funny though, because if you go on like if you go through some kind of rites of passage, experience, quest, whatever, incorporating the medicine is the sort of probably the most important bit. It's like it's deemed as
integration.
Yeah,
period.
exactly. That's probably deemed the most vital part of the experience. Otherwise, some would argue it's just peak experience. Do you know what I mean? And then you sort of like, what are you doing with the medicine? And of course, festivals have grown to be these things and places where we can just go and escape and do this stuff and create these alternative and experiment with alternative futures. And I'm so with you in terms of like the possibility of those places. But it does leave me a little bit again in these times with that question of like, if we have these spaces that are able to help people experience, to feel differently, how might we find, is it just a ridiculous idea to imagine what could incorporation look like? Even is it possible to create networks of integration and incorporation to sort of bring this back in? Because what I witness is people go, they have brilliant festivals and had an amazing summer, and then 3 months later they're like, everything's fucking shit, and it's just it's like, but can we imagine a world where these could be more intentionally? There could be this possibility to sort of nurture, more active participation, let's say, out back into the communities when we return from these spaces. Anyway,
the zombies plan. Rather it be zombies, but actually activated, well, excitable, energized, loving community builders.
That's it.
I think about like an opening and a closing ceremony and intentions, like anything that you step into, whether it's like you're going to see your family for a weekend or whatever it is, whether it's a big scary thing or an exciting thing, like setting the intention of like who you'd love to be going there and what you'd love to get out of it and not get out of it, but what you'd love to give to it rather than exploiting, like, how can I make this situation X, Y, Z? And so it's like, if you think about the intentions of a festival, and even like in the, they send out millions of emails like, prepare this, do this, da 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 da. Like, think about your intentions. Bring something to give back to the land. Bring something to give to a fellow camper. Like, how can we show that being in community for these few days can also ripple out to being a kinder citizen, human after it. I mean, it's, great questions. I think there are lots and lots of festivals. There's medicine festivals, there's Love Supreme, there's loads of festivals that are like sober and conscious.
Shamala and that's right. Yeah. There's a
Thematics. There's lots of festivals that are like swinging the other way, but what I want to see is like the bridging festivals that are like, this is what humanity knows and likes, so we want to capture that crowd, but we want to give them an experience over the weekend that will help them to go back being kinder to themselves, each other, and nature. Because this is all about relating and how we're relating to each other, and are we taking and taking and taking, or are we actually thinking about how this can be a reciprocal relationship, like whether it's to me and myself, like in how I wake up and what I do with my day, or to my community, my best friends, my sister, or to nature. Like, am I getting more than I'm giving? Like, and it's stop thinking about what you can get all the time. These egos, like, that just think about receiving rather than it being like, I want to be feeling like I'm giving just as much as I'm receiving.
Right. Beautiful. I can imagine. And I think that's what I'm, I guess experimenting with here in these discussions is exactly that, like seeing, like you've just spoken to, when you have folks that have, who are positioned again within the systems in places of power, or they have the ability to respond, right? Responsibility. They have that responsibility to sort of, to make some of these shifts or invitations, or make some of this intentionality more prominent within whether they're owners of festivals or directors of big record labels, or there are folks who have the ability to make some of these moves, which I would call weirder moves, but in all the right way. Like it makes, we need weirder moves right now. We need lots of weirder moves, I think, that are sort of like, oh wow, did you hear about that? You know what I mean? It's like a bit more of that going on. So let's
I say physical moves too. Like I genuinely want to see people being weirder.
Yeah.
Like I celebrate weird, like, and it shouldn't be weird. It's more just being wilder, like being in touch with themselves enough to know like they are allowed to be an animal and they are allowed to move weirdly, like, and like pushing boundaries on like even the streets or with people you don't know. Like just be you, be authentic and be real, and you're gonna be so much like kinder and happier inside.
Yeah. I think I don't think I made this up, but I think that the origins, or at least there's the word weird has some sort of Welsh language origins, which I think means being in two worlds or something like that, which for me, I thought was like, yeah, well, that's exactly what we need right now, right? We need the ability to be in some different worlds, at least not the sort of algorithmic, violent, divisive worlds, but some imaginal, caring worlds.
Look, listen, suggesting something supernatural, unearthly, connecting with fate, a person's destiny.
Anyways, I think, basically what we're getting at is that weird, I think, is a beautiful word, a beautiful, brilliant, creative, curious word, not an insulting, like, when you get called weird, it's like, thank you very much.
Like, yeah, totally.
Very nice.
I'm like, thank you.
So on that, so here's a question for you, because I think I have seen over the years a couple of pictures of you disappearing into the wilder landscapes in beautifully weird ways, and I'm really interested in this podcast, in the work, in how do we open ourselves up to wider intelligence in these times beyond the rational human logic, which has its value, but that there is so much other intelligence that we can be drawing on. And so I just wondered, I get a sense that's something that you practice, and I wondered, like, how does more than human intelligence, does it show up in your work? Does it show up in the work within the sector that you're playing within Earth%? Are you seeing people opening up to start to really sort of paying attention to other forms of intelligence in the living world and beyond? What do you have to say about that?
I'm in a very niche world. I'm in a very niche world where I've got fabulous friends around me who all try to see as much as they can and totally interrelate with all animate beings, and they think everything is animate. I was with some friends last weekend, and we went for a walk, and one went to kind of hug a tree, the other just went to lie down flat on the grass, and another was just like, I don't know, playing with rocks. And one was like, gosh, I didn't realize there are other people that are as weird and interconnected with nature as me, and like, I don't know, it's I think I'm lucky again to have been brought up in Scotland for half my life, that like, just there was no other option but to stop and listen and be connected and interconnected. Wait, I've lost your question. I'm sorry.
Just kind of like, I guess, again, I'm sort of thinking, I'm trying to understand in the different spaces in the culture, like, spaces of commerce, spaces of creativity, spaces of learning, is more than human intelligence beginning to show up? Are people starting to think, okay, what would it look like if we went and actually, spoke to the river or sat with the trees, or do you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, like, are you seeing any of that going on in the, within the music and the world of music and arts and nature and climate? Are you starting to see an opening up, a curiosity, a practice at all of starting to consider other beings in our, in the way that we're knowing and making decisions in the world, or is it still very human centric?
Well, I think there's many different examples. There's like one of the charities we were kind of founded by is Client Earth, and they're already working a lot on giving rivers
For rights of nature work.
The rights of nature. Then there's lots of people putting nature on boards, particularly with our Sounds Right campaign. The people that are deciding upon where the streaming rights go are Indigenous leaders, people that are nature lawyers and nature experts. So it's like, and then there's like, our dear friend who hosts the More Than Human Council, and Joanna Macy's work, the Council of Interbeing. So yes, I mean, there's the wisdom keepers that I work with who are all speaking on behalf of nature. Like, they are nature and they're speaking on behalf of nature. And they, as soon as they see a bird, they will talk to the bird. And like, it's all interconnected. They're walking through the COP space with turtle rattles on their arms and snakes, like snakes as decor, and not decor, but their actual attire. And so, it is interesting thinking about like my past in politics, where I would go to COP, I'd be wearing a suit, I'd be hanging out with suits and boots, and we would all be fighting whether energy efficiency is more important than renewable energy. And I'm like, it's the same thing. We need to get the energy systems to be integrated, both energy efficiency and renewable energy. It's not one more than the other. Stop fighting. And now I'm walking through with like 20 Indigenous wisdom holders who are in their full regalia, and I see people from my past looking at me and just being like in complete awe, like, where have you gone? What happened? But they're looking longingly, because they know and they see that this is ancient. This is pre-suits. This is, this is us in deep connection with ourselves. And I think every human being somehow, somewhere has that. So it's more about helping. There's many people who are awakened to that, to the idea that that we are not disconnected and that everything's animate, and then the people that know it inherently but aren't able to be it. I think it's just helping them be a bit more weird, as we say.
Cool. So you've mentioned a couple of times now about working with Indigenous wisdom holders. I think you're referring to the Wisdom Keepers Delegation project that you're part of. Could you just explain what that is, and how does that connect with the wider Music for Change work?
It's a project I'm so proud of, and that really is going into the heart of the halls of power to try and create lasting change for the lives of Indigenous peoples all around the world, land rights and justice, climate justice and overarching justice. And this delegation are phenomenal. They're a group of around 20 to 30 Indigenous delegates from all around the world, from different Indigenous communities all around the world, coming together to create policy statements, policy asks. And it's almost the thing that I love the most is like, if Indigenous communities from all around the world can come together and agree on demands and what they believe would be right for the world, how on earth are the people at the top who are in governance not able to come together and find honest ways of treating and respecting the world? And so I guess I'll take the question of how that links to music for change and say, actually, take it a step back. And this is all about finding a new relationship with the world. We've lived through 500 years of a crisis of separation, which I believe is the root cause of the economic crisis and currently our biggest threat to humanity, the ecological crisis. And this comes from a place of humans feeling superior to nature and treating it as something to exploit and take from. And so what both my work in Music for Change and with the Wisdom Keeper delegation is doing is trying to find roots into wider society and systems to help people really see that we're not apart and start to relate to each other, themselves and the natural world with a lot more reverence, respect, and fundamentally kindness.
Wow, that sounds like beautiful and vital work. So, it's a bit of an experiment that I've been doing in this latest round of recordings, where I've got these kind of like, they're a bit like quick fire questions.
Oh dear.
They're not quick fire at all. You can be as spacious as you like with them, and you can also go, it's not really speaking to me, Dan, move on to the next one. Yeah, I'm trying to sort of synthesize a lot of work, a lot of learning that I'm getting through this podcast. So play with me, and if you want to, it's totally fine to say it's not really landing for me, that one, and we can move on.
I love play.
Yeah,
It's my favorite stage.
I had a feeling you did.
I'm like, okay, let's go.
Okay, question one: What part of modern life, modernity, feels most absurd to you right now?
How we put a monetary value on things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When did you first realize that you were not just a passenger on Spaceship Earth, but part of the crew? If ever. Silence is also an answer.
I think it was brought to my particular attention when I was 17 and they said, you're going to university, pick a topic. And I was like, I don't know, I'm only 17. And then I was like, had to take a deeper dive into what I really cared about. And so there I was, studying environmental engineering and learning about how to find solutions in the world. I think I did it before. I planted trees with my dad since I was like really young, but I didn't know I was doing it. Does that make sense? There was a difference between just being it and then actually actively choosing that as a life path.
Beautiful. So staying with the spaceship metaphor, What part of the spaceship feels most broken to you right now?
Oh, humans.
Just humans.
No, I think it's something about how humans are relating, and how the power structures and how we're taught to succeed is based around, being rich, being famous, being beautiful, being someone of influence, having followers. It's like we're spoon fed a way of growing into the world to do well that is so disconnected to kindness and values and relating with a reciprocal way with ourselves, each other, and nature.
And what parts are still miraculously working?
When you go for a walk in the woods, or when you go for a walk in a place that's not necessarily been touched so much by humans, you see how much, I mean, actually, even in a park in London that's been planted by humans, like nature as we like imagine it in the everyday, of like the green things, the flowers, the soil, the like looking at one bit of nature, you can spend hours and hours in, and you can see that actually everything is working and everything is okay. And if like humans are not going to remain on this planet, it's still going to be absolutely beautiful. There's so much beauty, like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful relationships and things to look at.
Love it. What who are the most under-recognized crew on Spaceship Earth, that could be human or more than human, who are keeping the systems alive?
I like to think back to like ancient more than humans, like the yew tree or trees in general, that like they're not only standing there helping us breathe, but they're like, imagine all of the different ecosystems that are under the roots, and all of the different ecosystems that are in the branches, and all of the life that is generated around one of these. And then they're all around the world, and they're creating canopies and homes for millions of birds. And so if you think about like, how trees and just the immediate trees and birds interrelating, like trees, you can imagine them all across the world changing into their different species and types and in all their beauty. And then you can imagine the birds around them. And if you imagine just like being a silent passenger walking the loop of the earth, and like imagine how many different bird sounds and bird songs you hear, because thanks to the shelter that the trees give them. It's just like, and that's just one tiny bit of nature that's like working well. Sharks and what they're doing in the waters and like keeping the ecosystem going. It's like, oh, there's so many different animals and species and beings that like really do look out for an ecosystem that they're part of.
Beautiful. What have you learned about life on board Spaceship Earth that no school ever taught you?
Kindness is cool. Kind is cool. Solutions, not problems. And it's like it's taking away from this idea of the individual. But if you speak to anybody and you go in with this practice of deep listening and compassion and understanding, then no matter what the problem, a resolution can be found. And so there are ancient ways of showing up in the world, for example, Plum Village, going back there. And, you know, Christiana Figueres said the reason that she was able to get the 197 member states to sign the Paris Climate Agreement was because she learned about the Plum Village ways and learned that there's no such thing as like, well, not to a degree, but that like the victim and the perpetrator argument doesn't work, and we're all interconnected. So we all want to find a solution that's good for the planet. It's like, it's, you know, everybody does think that they want to be doing something good. So it's like, just deeply listen and be compassionate, and remember, we're all trying our best. Everybody really deeply thinks they're trying their best.
If you could ask forgiveness from one being on Earth, could be anything, who would it be?
But I think the water. I mean, water is just, it's everywhere. It never dies. Like, as soon as you touch water, you're interconnected in the whole of the water system. And look at how we're polluting it. Look at what we're putting into it. Look at how much we're destroying it. Similarly with the air system, but water is, you know, it's a vital part of our living, of our survival. And wow, are humans not caring about it? Oh, it doesn't have a value. We'll put rubbish in it. Oh, it's a dustbin for us. Oh, just it'll go away if we push it down the river. And it's like, oh, wow, it's a sacred elder. Start to respect it a lot more, please, everyone. You know, just take a moment every morning when you have your sip of water and say thank you. Like, thank you for keeping me hydrated and keeping the whole ecosystem hydrated.
Beautiful. I can't remember where I was recently, but I was talking about that again, that whole, the finiteness of water, you know, and the fact that it's constantly cycling, and, you know, in terms of our ancestors, of, you know, that water has run through all of our ancestry, you know, it's just mind-boggling when you start thinking of that, you know. Yeah. So you actually, with water, you can be back in connection with all of your ancestry, all life. It's bonkers. Yeah. That's a story that would be good, wouldn't it? Spread across all the media, you know, just like. Yeah.
Did you know every time you sip on water, it's water that's existed on this planet?
Do you know what I mean? Get in touch with your ancestors down at the local pond, you know, or the. Anyway.
I agree.
Right. So last year's closing questions. Do you have a small, strange, or sacred practice that keeps you in relationship with the great mystery, something bigger?
My favorite practice that interconnects me is climbing trees. Makes me so happy.
Nice.
I can hear a lot more. And I enter a state of just total connectedness.
Nice. We have this invitation, Becoming Crew, and so just like what does it bring up for you? Does it manifest, suggest anything at this moment?
It's almost like how the best way to beat the opposition is to throw a better party without any coercion or like without any manipulation. Like, how do we help others to see that they're all crew, and being crew is fun and cool and kind and, you know, like weird, and it's such an alive place to be. It's it makes caring fun.
What does it ask of you in your local ecosystems, this invitation of Becoming Crew? Does it ask something of you, do you think?
Yeah, I guess every human has this ripple effect of their sphere of influence, right? From your neighbors to your local shop to the local churches, or the, you know, wherever it is. So I suppose, like, I don't know, there's a chain of thought that's like practice, don't preach. like if you are living in alignment with a way that is a kind of regenerative, reciprocal relationship with the world and nature, and you are doing well, it's already showing up. I think preaching without practicing is kind of the worst. And a lot of people do it. So it's like how to be the change rather than preach the change.
Beautiful. And you've just teed up the last question, which is all about practice. So it's on that. I guess I keep pulling my headphones off. There's so we're all about practice. We call it practice-driven change. It's like how do we build these practices that are going to help us become differently? And so I just wonder whether there was a practice that you, an invitation, an offering, something that you could offer listeners to play with or consider, or just something for the listener crew.
I think one of the most exciting things a person can do is understand what they like doing and understand what they care about, really, truly, madly, deeply, not what society thinks you should care about, and not what even your parents think you should care about. It's not about, being a good person and following what you're being taught. It's like, think deeply. Like when was the last time that your heart lit up? And is it something creative? Because often the creative worlds are the things that really do trigger our feelings and our emotions. So it's like, figure out what you really deeply care about, and then find a way to be and play in that world and zone out of the wider world, so that you're actually like in a space of this, clarity, clear, no thoughts, meditation sort of space. And then my tricks to feeling normal again, if I'm ever like triggered or put out of place, or and it's like almost, you call it the daily hygiene, right? It's like I don't want to use the word spiritual because people get really put off, but like your mental hygiene, your well-being hygiene still doesn't work that way. But it's like my stuff that I do to make me feel grounded and calm and happy is like moments out in nature without a phone. And just like, when I go into the woods, for example, I just feel my like whole body like rippling, and it's almost like the energy of the city and the technology just like kind of, it takes a moment to go away. Sometimes I even get a headache, and then it will go out and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've dropped in. Oh, it's been a while. So like getting that time in at least once a week is really important for me. Another practice that I learned at Plum Village is deep listening, because even when we're having this conversation, doesn't mean that we've been deeply listening. And I think if you can't deeply listen, you don't even know who you are and what you're doing. So like, actually, instead of jumping to respond, it's like, what is the person saying, and how can I be patient and not need to talk? Finding community is another one. People that are like-minded and that make you feel good and are not off on the bender here and a bender there, but like are doing things that you can really like feel connected to. Listening to music is like a concert a week for me, at minimum. I love it so much. It is absolutely my beating heart. And then finding times of silence and meditation and oneness, being happy being alone, like in your own space. It's huge. We're constantly filling our time with calendars and events, etc., etc. And it's like, no, but wait, take a day, take 2 days of just literally seeing as little people as possible. It's good for you.
It's my favorite pastime.
Not everyone likes it. A lot of people are really scared of like that, like aloneness rather than it being lonely, but like alone, being alone.
I think it's I love it. I think again, I think that has that's a really recent phenomena, the filling of all space, the sort of you know what I mean, the endless distraction, the endless need to kind of fill space, and again back to the uncomfort of sitting with silence. But as we know, it's a practice. When we become more practiced, we start to feel, oh, okay, there's something beautiful going on. I always love like the noble silence at Plum Village, just that sort of, and also that you get to that point where you feel like you can communicate, and anything that needs to communicate is still communicated in the silence. You know what I mean? It's like we don't need podcasts. We don't need to talk. More silent podcast, perhaps.
I don't know if your podcast could ever be a silent one. We could do a funny test of like, let's see if Dan can do the silent podcast for an hour.
Oh no, they can't do it.
Give yourself a challenge.
I don't talk any other time. It's only on here.
Yeah. I've seen you in the flesh.
Sophia, thank you so much for finding the time for today, and for all that you do. I still feel like there's a lot more I want to know.
Yeah.
But that, that's
in the ocean of what I'm up to.
Yeah, but and just for all that you do, and your dedication to our home planet and all the beings, and really get a sense and a feeling of the energy that you are putting into these times. And so just say huge sort of respect, we'll remain entangled, I'm sure. Sort out a 4D party perhaps. Yeah, but is there anything you want to close with before I ring the bell?
I just want to say thank you for having me on your spaceship. It's felt like a bit of a meditation and an inquiry into life. I've had a lovely time.
Aww.
And I'm smiling now, so thank you so much.
Aww. Beautiful. Right, shall I bell us out?
Yeah. Yummy. We made it through a bell, Dan.
Right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sophia. I loved that, and so much emerged and I took, and what an amazing human she is. Amazing energy. And follow along Earth Percent, Wisdom Keepers, and all the other bits and pieces. I'll put them in the show notes. And just let us know if you received through that, what it brought to you. We always love a bit of feedback. Drop us a message in the Substack or an email, hello@spaceship.earth. And yes, if you do receive from that and you think someone else in your orbit might, please do share. Put it in a WhatsApp group or two. Pass it on. Put it on your socials if you use them. This is the spirit of reciprocity, and this is how we collectively grow together. This is an active, participative practice of becoming crew. We are also open for registrations for our Becoming Crew winter learning journey called Into the Dark, which kicks off mid-January. And that's a 5-week action learning journey online in community. It's basically a creative invitation into darkness, into endings, into this slower liminal space of winter. It's the 4th year we've done this. It's a really incredible way to start the year. Registrations are now open, so I'll link below. If you're really enjoying what we're doing here, please do sign up to the Substack. becomingcrew.substack.com, and if you're really, really, really enjoying it, maybe you would consider switching to a paid subscription. It's about the price of an English pint of beer a month, or a couple of cups of coffee in a coffee bar, we would deeply appreciate contributions to the running of this whole ongoing experiment now in its 7th year, and a big, huge hug of respect and gratitude to those listeners who are committed to subscribing to us and supporting the show. So until next time, look after yourself out there. Keep re-entangling with this mysterious living earth. Peace and out.
This podcast is created in service to life, for you. It takes time, funds and energy to make. If you'd like to contribute to the running costs, you can donate the price of a cuppa or a pint. Find the link on our website. This podcast wouldn't exist without the following crew: Charlie Shred, Audio Jedi; Seaman Home Burgess, Engine Room; Willow Burgess, Jingles.